Hi, Mike Doyle, Congressman Mike Doyle. How are you?
I'm good, Terry. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for asking. And how's the family during this time?
We're good. We're doing what most families are doing, staying home, staying safe.
Okay.
When we come into contact with people, we try to make sure we're staying more than 6 feet apart, and we wear a mask when we go outside, and just doing what all of us need to be doing to get this virus
Yeah.
under control and enable us to move forward.
Yeah, good, good. I'm glad to hear that. So yeah, I want to get started. I don't want to take up a lot of your time. I want to make sure that first and foremost, I am recording, and
Mhm.
so I will tell you a little bit about Western Power. What we did 6 years ago, we had decided that we had noticed that our community did not have the education or the knowledge of exactly the who, what, where, and why of local offices. And so what we seen is that we were coming out in communities in droves in the presidential election. And so what we know as a fact is that our local elections affects our day-to-day lives. So what Western Powers decided to do was go out and educate our community on the who, what, where, and why. So
Mhm.
that's what this is. We're extremely nonpartisan. We have a couple funders who have, Poise Foundation, the Opportunity Fund. So I just wanted to let you know that that's who we are, a little bit about us. We're out in the community, doing what we can to educate and empower and unite our community. So that's Western
Good.
Power. So so let's get started. So um, for the men and women, for our audience, can you tell us who you are?
Yeah, I grew up in Swissvale, uh, and my dad was a steel worker in Braddock. We come from a blue collar family. My grandfather, by the way, my grandfather was Mike Doyle. My father was Mike Doyle, and I'm Mike Doyle. But my grandfather worked at the Kerry Furnace in Rankin. My father at Edgar Thompson in Braddock. And I worked 2 summers in the steel mill and decided I didn't want to be a steel worker, but got a chance to go to college. Went to Penn State. I grew up in Swissvale, went to Catholic grade school, St. Anselm's, and public high school, Swissvale High School. I had a football team, and my brother and I wanted to play football. Went to Penn State. This was in the early 70s during the height of the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
My draft number was 39, was pretty sure I was on my way over to Vietnam. The 72 elections were coming up. George McGovern was running against Richard Nixon. George McGovern wanted to end the war in Vietnam. I signed on as a volunteer on the McGovern campaign. And that's kind of where I got the political bug. Was the first campaign I ever worked on was the 1972 presidential election. They had just lowered the voting age from 21 down to 18. That was the first election I was allowed to vote in. So when I came home from Penn State, back home to Swissvale, ended up marrying 2 weeks out of college. My wife, Susan, who I met in the 9th grade, her dad was my Little League coach. We dated in high school briefly. She dumped me, and then we both went to college, but we got back together the summer of our sophomore year. And 2 weeks after graduation, we got married. And the 23rd of this month, May 23rd, will be our 45th wedding anniversary.
Oh, wow.
We've been married
Congratulations.
5 years, and we've raised 4 children. And we're blessed that they all live in Pittsburgh and work in Pittsburgh and bought homes in Pittsburgh. They're all grown. We have 2 grandkids. That's pretty much my family story. I've done a lot of different things. I was an executive director of a nonprofit group called the Turtle Creek Valley Citizens Union when I first got out of college. I was in the insurance business. I sold insurance, and in the early 80s opened up an agency. I've been a small business person. I worked on our borough council. I got elected to borough council when I was 21 years old. Went door to door and knocked on doors and got elected. Not a paying job, but local government experience.
Mm-hmm.
Worked 16 years in the Pennsylvania State Senate as a staffer. Got to see how state government works. And in 1994, when Rick Santorum vacated the congressional seat to run for the United States Senate, it was an open seat. And I ran in a 7-way Democratic primary, was not endorsed by the party.
Mm-hmm.
An attorney out of McKeesport at the time was endorsed, a good person. And I won that primary, and I've been honored by the people of this district to win 13 times, 13 general elections in a row. I'm in my 13th term. I've always lived in this district my entire life. And this is where I've raised our kids, and I love this area, and I'm very proud to represent it in Congress.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you. I did not know all of your background. I knew some. I didn't know all of it. That's why we like having these, educational civic, community civic series. So now your district is the 18th district, correct?
That's correct.
What?
It's a big district. It's over 700,000 people in the 18th congressional district. 54 communities, the city of Pittsburgh being one of the 54.
Mm-hmm.
It's the biggest of the 54 communities, but I have the entire city of Pittsburgh and 54 all in Allegheny County, parts of the eastern suburbs in Mon Valley, parts of the South Hills. We go all the way out to Bridgeville, all the way down the Mon Valley to Forward Township. We go out in the eastern suburbs out to Plum. So it's a large, diverse district. It is approximately 22% African American and 3% Asian and 2% Hispanic, and the rest is white.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a district that has some very wealthy communities and very poor communities and everything in between. So it's, like I said, a diverse district and one that provides many opportunities, but still gives us many challenges.
Mm-hmm.
As in a lot of respects, it's a tale of two cities. Some doing very well, some neighborhoods doing well, others struggling. So that's the challenge, is to make sure that we lift all boats in the 18th district. But that's what it is.
Well, I'm glad you said that. I was going to ask you to name your communities, but never mind. Never mind. I'm not going to ask you.
It's 54 communities. It's a long list.
Right. So I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you clarified that, so I wouldn't bring that question up. So my next question to you, Mike, is what would be your suggestion, or how would you say that we can get privatization out of our prisons? Which predominantly hits poor Black and brown. Like right now, we have some that's privately owned that women have to buy their own hygiene items. We know a story of a young woman that had an accident on her monthly cycle, and they actually put her in the hole. So, what would you say that could be done to get them out of our prisons?
Well, let me say, first of all, I don't think anybody should make a profit over this broken criminal justice system and mass incarcerations. I completely oppose private prisons, and I think they should all be eliminated. I also think that private companies that work within our public prisons should be highly regulated. And, I supported President Obama's move to end the use of private prisons. But unfortunately, that was overturned by President Trump when he came into office. He rolled back that provision that President Obama had put in. So I think we're going to need a new occupant in the White House if we ever want to completely abolish private prisons. And hopefully that will happen this coming November. And we'll get a president that supports eliminating these private prisons. I'm completely against them.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And it's going to go. My next question is going to go into, you hit on it a little already with the some is wealthy communities that you serve, some is lower income, and some is poor. So and then we have a lot of our communities that if you ask, it depends on who you ask. The response will be, we are the forgotten community. So how can we change that language and make sure that what steps need to be done to make sure that funding is equally, divided amongst all of the communities?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question, and that's one of our challenges. How do we make sure, the federal government, I'm a federal official. Mm-hmm. A lot of the money that I bring into Pittsburgh is pass-through money. We may pass it down to the states, who pass it to the counties, and it gets distributed. So a lot of times, as a federal congressman, I don't get a direct say specifically and
Okay.
where the money gets spent. That's made a decision at the local level. Now, there are some instances where I have had the ability to say, this is where I want the money to go. And this was back when we used to do earmarking, which we no longer do in the federal government. But let me give you an example of the 5 major transportation projects that I was able to designate. I always made it a point to designate those funds in the poor communities to spur economic development. I'll give you some specific examples. We did flyover ramps in Duquesne and McKeesport, and we did that to access 2 abandoned mill sites so that we could have development there. On the Duquesne site, you see the Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank has been in the news a lot, and a huge American textile industry and some other businesses developed on that site because we made it people able to get in there. The railroad track made it impossible to get in there. That's why we put the flyover ramp to access. We did the same thing in McKeesport. I did another transportation project to try to open up development in Rankin, and that's coming across the Rankin Bridge. We have a flyover down off the Rankin Bridge down into the old Kerry Furnace site because we're trying to develop that site and bring some economic vitality into Rankin and Swissvale. In the city of Pittsburgh, 2 projects I did. One was the terminal in East Liberty. That was a transportation project that I funded. And then secondly, the one that's going to connect downtown Pittsburgh to the Lower Hill District, the ramp that's going to go over 579 and create a lot of economic development in the Lower Hill. And in the Lower Hill, we've made sure that the contractors, there's guaranteed minority participation with the contractors and the businesses that are located there, that there's minority businesses in there. And we're pushing for 30% affordable housing in the housing component that goes up there. So I've tried, when I've had some direct say-so in where a project goes, to locate those projects in parts of my district that really needed some help. And that's the poor areas of my district. Now, the other thing I've done is I've worked with Jim Clyburn, who's our majority whip from South Carolina, and we're doing this in the COVID bill, and we're doing it in future appropriation bills too, as we're doing the census this year. And Terri, this is why it's very important we all fill out the census, that we've got to make sure everybody, especially in the poorer communities, because we want to have a system, once the census is completed, where federal dollars get directed first to the poorest communities across our country. And if people don't fill out the census form, we won't have the data we need to make sure that we get more federal dollars down into not only to the Pittsburgh region, but to those communities that are the poorest communities. So I think it's very important that we do that. And when I have been able to personally steer money, I have always steered it towards the poorest communities in my district.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up about the census. Well, thank you for that, because right now I know what 1PA is doing a phenomenal job with getting the word out, door to door. Well, now that we're in our quarantine mode, phone calls, text banking. So yeah, so that is something that I know that they are, on the front lines with that right now. So I'm glad you brought that up. Because I don't think that was one of my questions that I had for you, but I'm glad you brought that up for the audience about the importance of this census.
So important.
Yes.
Once every 10 years, we get a chance to compete for federal dollars, and there's formula money. And a lot of that formula is based on the census information. So, and there's people going around now, you're going to start seeing people going to areas where people haven't completed the form. Maybe they don't have online access and they quickly do it online and they haven't filled it in yet, but people are going to be knocking on doors too. And it's really tough because we're in the middle of a pandemic now, and a lot of people won't answer a door to a stranger, while we're in the middle of this COVID-19. So it's worrying a lot of us that, we've got to make sure that we get the census filled out. It's so important to communities like the West End and other parts of Pittsburgh, where we need to make sure we're getting federal dollars into those areas.
Yeah, thank you for that. Can you do me a quick favor? Can you go into just a little of what does the census dollars, where do they go? Just a little so our audience understand exactly what we're talking about.
So like I said, the federal government does a lot of pass-through money. We don't actually run the programs, we fund the programs that get run, right? But we have to understand how do federal dollars get allocated? And we just don't allocate them willy-nilly, they're based on formulas. And the formulas have to do with the demographics of the country, the median income of certain areas. So when you think about the census, it basically asks you a lot of demographic types of questions. It asks, racial questions, so we know what the race breakdown is. It asks a lot of socioeconomic types of questions. So it helps us determine where the need is.
Yeah.
And if people don't fill out the census, then we don't know there's a need there. And that's why it's so important, because when these formula monies come down to Pennsylvania or to Pittsburgh or to Allegheny County, it's based on formulas we see in the census. And once every 10 years, we take a look at that, right? So that's why it's so important to fill it out. It also determines congressional districts, how many districts your state has. Pennsylvania is going to lose a seat in Congress. We have 18 congressional districts right now. We're going to go to 17. We already know from preliminary data in the census that our population hasn't really dropped. It's gone up a little bit, but relative to other states, it hasn't. Texas will gain 5 more seats in Congress. Pennsylvania is going to lose a seat in Congress. That's determined by the census, by how many people that we have in these districts. So when the census is completed this year, the new districts will get drawn up in 2021. And in 2022, you're going to see that the map of Pennsylvania shrink from 18 to 17, and you'll probably have 2 congressional districts put together, and 2 incumbents will be running against one another, and one will go and one will stay based on however that map gets drawn by the state legislature.
Okay. Yeah, and also, like you said, the funding goes out for our census funding goes out to our low-income families for even school lunches, our Medicare,
Everything.
Medicaid. Yeah. So very important. I'm so glad you brought that up. Thank you for that. Now,
Sure.
so let's carry on. My next question is, now I know being extremely transparent, you and I talked on a personal level maybe 2 years ago or so about probation reform.
Yeah.
Has any steps been, has it moved anywhere? Is it still on the radar? Where is that at right now for probation reform, being as though where we are with our criminal justice system?
Yeah, we put 95,000 people every day back in prison on technical violations of their probations. What we're supposed to be doing is helping people transition back into the community, not putting them back in jail. This is and it's become more evident in light of what's been going on with the coronavirus and the situations in the prison. We have had a little bit of bipartisan action on criminal justice reform with the passage of the First Step Act. Hopefully, we hope to continue that kind of work, especially we're in divided government right now, right? So my party, the Democratic Party, controls the House, but the Republican Party controls the Senate. You have a Republican in the White House. It means you have to get bipartisan agreement on these things. So we have some success with it. My hope is that this election will bring us more people in Congress who care about these issues. And as you know, I've supported criminal justice reform measures and probation reform and during my tenure in Congress, and I'm going to continue to do so, and hopefully get a Senate and a White House that we can even go further with. But that's going to be up to people on November 3rd when they get out and vote.
Okay, so yeah, even to collaborate on or piggyback off of your answer, I can go into my next question, because a lot of people feel in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that people's not heard unless it's a rally or it's a march, or so how can the Congress collaborate with local leaders, activists, being at the same table, asking for the same things of moving forward. So how do you see that, or can you see that at all with Congress collaborating with the people that they're speaking for and having them at the table at the same time?
Yeah, I'm a great believer in collaboration. I do it a lot. We have regular meetings. We try to establish a regular group that meets of state and county and city leaders to just talk about, how what I'm doing in the federal government can work better for them. Just recently, I did a tele-town hall with the Pittsburgh Black elected officials. We had some of our new members, Liv Bennett and Summer Lee, on there, along with some of the officials I've been working with for years, Jake Wheatley and Ed Gainey and Austin Davis and DeWitt Walton and Daniel Lavelle and Ricky Burgess. And we targeted zip codes to make the phone calls to in the communities of color to talk about issues that were specific to them. And it was interesting because while a lot of the conversation was around, the COVID pandemic, about how you get your stimulus check, unemployment compensation, we also talked a lot about prison reform, criminal justice reform, and other issues that in particular affect the Black community. Also in healthcare, we know this pandemic has been targeting people of color at a higher rate than others. So I put that tele-town hall meeting together with the Pittsburgh Black elected officials so that we could do that. I meet with community groups all the time. Now, one thing that I hope people understand, they may see their state representative a lot more than they see me. A state representative district is 59,000 people, okay? Mine's 700,000. So my district is 12 state representative districts, okay? 3 state senate districts, 54 communities. I'm probably not intimately familiar with every community organization that's out in my district, but I will tell you this, any community organization, any group, any neighborhood that wants a meeting with me, they'll get a meeting with me. They call my district office on South Side, which is my main office in the city of Pittsburgh, and say they'd like to meet with me. And what I do is, I'm in Washington Monday through Thursday. So I leave Monday morning to go to Washington, D.C. I get back Thursday evening. That's my life. And then usually Fridays or the weekends, if necessary, is when I get a chance to meet with groups that come to my office. Now, sometimes we get what's called a district work period, where I'm home for a week, and we'll schedule groups in all the time. So I enjoy doing that, and I try to do it as much as I can. I have a great working relationship with the local elected officials in my district, more so at the city, county level. Now, I mean, imagine 54 municipalities. They all have 6 or 7 councilmen. So that means I have like 400 or 500 members of council and 54 mayors. A lot of them like to joke with me and come up and say, "What's my name?" And it's like, look in your wallet. You got a driver's license there. I'm sure your name's on there, But I'm saying I've got a lot of elected officials. I like collaboration. I think I learned from that, and it's a chance for me to educate groups also on what we're doing in the federal government and what we can do and what we can't do. So and I'm trying to get to know the new members. Summer Lee is my state representative where I live. So she's my state rep, and she's brand new, right? And she lives in Swissvale, where I grew up. Okay. I've met Liv Bennett a couple times. She was on our tele-town hall that we did with the Black elected officials, as was Summer. And I've only met her once or twice. I haven't had a chance to really have a sit down with Liv and talk with her. But it's my goal to get to know them all well and to work cooperatively with them. On state issues. If I get a problem to my office as a state issue, I'd like to be able to refer to whoever the state rep is in that district. If they get a federal problem, I want them to know that they can refer that to me, and we're going to work on that and take care of their constituent, which is our constituent, So I love Clive. I was a staffer in the Pennsylvania State Senate for 16 years. I was a chief of staff. I know there's nothing more important than constituent work and meeting with groups. So I'm a big believer in it.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Yeah. So Summer and Liv, 2 powerful women that you had the honor of sitting on a panel with. Yeah. So, and I wanted to say, so Liv Bennett, county councilwoman Liv Bennett, she did her, DeWitt, and there was I think 1 or 2 more. And I'm so sorry I forgot their names. But DeWitt Walton and Olivia Bennett, they led the bill on racism in Pittsburgh is a health crisis here. Right. And it was 12-3, and which should have, well, okay, it was 12-3. Yeah. So how is, is there anything going, because now, we're going into 2021, 2022, 2023. It's not like how it used to be. So is there any vision or thoughts or talks about congressmen collaborating with county council members to fix that? Let's even talk about the University of Pittsburgh's 96-page 96-page report of how, Pittsburgh is one of the worst places for Black people, as predominantly Black women. So is there any talks or is there any thoughts on your behalf, or or any vision that can change that report, number one, and grow on something way stronger here in Pittsburgh for the men and women that are Black?
Yeah, already doing it. First of all, the resolution on county council is very helpful. I'm the original co-sponsor of a resolution in Congress, which is urging not only the federal government, but the state government to do more to collect data on and improve these racial disparities. About a month or so ago, I met with a number of Black women from Pittsburgh to talk about this very issue, and part of what's called the Momnibus, which is a piece of legislation that we have in Congress that I'm a part of, to make sure that we're getting federal dollars and more information to communities, and especially on infant mortality and health benefits to people, women in the African American community. I'm very much aware of it, and I'm a member of the caucus that's working on those issues. So this is something that's been very important to me, something I've already met with many representatives from Pittsburgh on this very issue, and something I'm currently working on in Congress.
I'm glad to know that, because word is, what we've been talking about on a personal level, organizational level, church level, spiritual level. Our communities have been talking. There is no going back to normal. Even when this is over, we will be doing ourselves and our communities injustice to go back to normal. So I'm glad to hear that. I'm gonna wrap it up real quick. I want two more questions. Can you tell the community about the primaries have moved? What date did it move to? If they're not registered to vote, where should they go register to vote? And maybe what's your office address? That because earlier you had said your office on the south side is your main office. Maybe that address. And yeah, when's the deadline for the ballot, the mail-in ballots, and how can they get one?
Yeah, first of all, there's nothing more important than voting. And if people want to really have a say-so in what their government looks like, they have to participate. So we all need to vote. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Allegheny County has about a little under 900 polling locations, which are going to be shrunk down to 139 due to the pandemic. So this means that each community will have one polling place, and in the city, each city council district will have one polling place. This could mean long lines and waits. So we're encouraging people to vote by mail. For the first time in Allegheny County, you don't need a reason to vote by mail. This isn't like an absentee ballot where you're out of the county or you're sick and you can't vote. This is a no excuse mail-in ballot. You have till May 26th to mail that application in. Now, a couple good news things. The county executive has decided to mail every registered voter in Allegheny County an application for a mail-in ballot. He is including with that application a self-addressed stamped envelope. You don't have to do anything but fill it out, sign it, date it, put the information from your driver's license or ID card, and put that in the self-addressed stamped envelope and drop it in the mail. You have to do this by May 26th. That's the deadline. However, if you have access to the internet, you don't even have to mail that ballot in. You can go on votespa.com, votespa, So VOTESPA.com. I did it. I registered on Votes PA, Susan, my wife and I. It took me less than 10 minutes. All I needed was my driver's license. I filled in the information, hit the button, boom, I got an email a week or so later saying they've received my online application and it's approved, and they're going to notify me. I don't have my ballot yet, but they're going to be mailing the ballot to me. It will come with a self-addressed stamped envelope, okay? You don't got to find a stamp. You don't got to worry about what's the address. You'll get that ballot. You'll fill it out. You'll put it in there. It won't have your name on the ballot. Nobody will know it's your ballot. You'll just sign the outside of that envelope, okay, so that they can compare your signature with the voter list. And you just drop that in the mail. Don't need a stamp. And your ballot gets registered. Now, if for some reason you don't vote by mail, you can go to the polls on election day and you can vote. What happens if you get a ballot, okay, you apply for a ballot and they mail you one, but you decide not to mail that in. Instead, you decide to show up at the polls and vote. They're going to know that they mailed you a ballot. So the first thing they're going to say to you, and this is important for people to know, is they're going to say, we see that we mailed you a ballot. Did you mail a ballot in? And you may say, I decided I didn't want to do it. You know, I decided I wanted to vote in person. They will let you vote provisionally. So you can vote in person. It'll be a provisional vote. It will be held aside until they verify that you didn't mail in a ballot. And once they've counted all the ballots, if you haven't mailed a ballot in, then that provisional vote will be tallied and you'll be listed as voting. But don't let anyone tell you at a polling place you already voted by mail, you can't vote here. You still can cast a provisional ballot. You just have to say, I never mailed that ballot in. They won't let you vote twice either. And by the way, if they find out you've mailed a ballot in, that's the one that will count, whichever gets there first, right? So if your mail-in ballot gets there and somehow you vote provisionally in the polls and they see you mailed the ballot in, that's the one that counts. So that's the other thing I'd caution people, is make sure that once you send that in, that's who you want to vote for, because you don't get to change your mind. You can't say, you know what, I decided I don't want to vote for this person. I'm going to go down in person and vote for the other person. Not going to work. Once you mail that ballot in, that's your choice. May 26th, you're going to get it in the mail. You are going to get a ballot in the mail. You're probably going to hear from me. I'm going to send you a note saying you just got a ballot in the mail, okay? And you need to fill it out and send it in, and hopefully consider me when you're doing that. So a lot of us that are up for election this primary, are also communicating with the voters to let them know that it's important that they mail those ballots in. So that's how it's going to work.
I'm glad you said that, because I'm glad you went into depth about, excuse me, my dog is I'm sorry if you could hear her. But I'm glad you went into the depths of the safety of mail-in ballots, because right now what we're hearing from people is, don't mail in your ballots, it's not safe. And that's just not true. It's just not true. And it's unfortunate that this is what, people choose to put out there, knowing that it's just not true.
I mean, it's coming from the very top. I mean, the president himself has implied that there's some sort of fraud with vote by mail. Yeah. The reality is they're just afraid of vote by mail. It's safe. And in this pandemic, we're having trouble getting workers to staff the polling locations. For the most part, the people that work inside the polls tend to be retired. They get $100. A lot of people don't want to put themselves at risk to be in there all day long as people were coming in and passing them, especially if they're up in age and in a higher risk category, to take a chance that they could contract the virus. So that's why we have to reduce the polling places. But the safest way to vote, both in terms of protecting your vote and protecting your health, is to vote by mail. And I hope people will do that.
Yeah, me too. And what we've been doing was literally, educating them on the safety of it. So I'm glad you brought that up. And going from the polling places, so it's 1,300 down to 130 something. So do you think it's going to stay like that forever, or is this something that's just now because of the situation that we're in our country?
I don't think it will stay like that as far as the polling place locations. I mean, right now, the problem is that the county executive was learning he just couldn't get the workers to staff that many polling locations. So the state allowed him to submit an alternative plan. Every county, can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So he submitted the alternative plan. But the other thing he did, we're the only county that I'm aware of where we are mailing ballots to every registered voter. They're not doing that in other counties. Allegheny County has really stepped forward on that and made sure that every registered voter, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you're getting a ballot, and you're getting a self-addressed stamped envelope. There's no, we're not putting any onus on anybody other than to just fill it out. They don't have to go buy a stamp. They don't have to go buy envelopes. They don't got to worry about the address. It's all done for you. And we're the only county that I'm aware of in Pennsylvania, 67 counties, that is doing that for every voter. So I've been told recently that over 120,000 people have already requested ballots. They've mailed in applications. And that there's already 20 or 40,000, I think over 20,000 ballots already received. Now, they can't count the ballots until 7 o'clock in the morning on election day, but they cannot disclose the results of the ballot. If they initially, they weren't allowed to count the ballots till the polls closed. But if that were the case, we wouldn't know the results of the election for maybe a couple days.
Right.
So what they're allowing them to do now is to start counting ballots 7 o'clock in the morning on election day, sequester the results, no releasing of the results, and then when the polls close at 8 o'clock, at 8:05, they'll announce what they have in mail-in ballots, if they have them all counted, and then start to bring in the results from the polls.
Okay.
So that's how it's going to work.
Yeah. Thank you for that, because just this morning I had a conversation with the safety of mail-in ballots. So I'm glad that we were able to bring that up. So that's all our questions here from Western Power with our community educational civic series. Is there anything that you would like to say that maybe we did not touch on before we end today?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you, and I want to thank you for all the work you do out in the community. I'm well aware of your efforts, and a democracy only works if we all get involved, and you're someone that has chosen to do that. The other thing is, an educated electorate is what makes democracy work too. And the only way we can be educated is if we talk to one another, if we share information. I just want people to know that this district that I've lived in my entire life, I love dearly. I never thought the son of blue-collar steel workers would ever get a chance to serve in the United States Congress, but I consider it a tremendous privilege. And every day when I wake up and I go to Washington, D.C. and see the U.S. Capitol, I get excited to know that I get to speak for a lot of good people here in Western Pennsylvania. And as long as they decide to send me back, I'll continue to work hard for them. And I always respect their judgments every 2 years on election day. So we'll see what happens on June 2nd. Get out and vote.
Thank you, Congressman Mike Doyle. Western Power thanks you. Our community thanks you for taking the time out and talking to us and educating us, because that's what it's all about. That's what we're about. So again, thank you very much.
Thanks, Terry. Have a good day.
You too.